Welcome everyone to Monday Match Analysis. I'm Gill Gross. Valentin Vacherot is champion at the 2025 Rolex Shanghai Masters. He completes a Cinderella run for the ages, defeating his cousin. And another shocker, Arthur Rinderknech in the final. We'll talk about that final, then I'll bring in the three crew, Gill, Drucker, and Amy Lundy, to discuss Novak Djokovic, Daniil Medvedev. Both of them fell in the semis. And we'll also discuss some larger Shanghai themes. You think about surprising Masters 1000 finals just in recent times. I know we could go further back, but just in recent times, what comes to mind? 2017 Paris, Sock against Krajinovic, although Sock at the time was a top player. Lajovic and Fognini, Monte Carlo 2019. Indian Wells 2021, Cam Norrie and Nicholas Basilashvili. Those are the three that kind of come to my mind. This was about 10 times more surprising than all of those. Rinderknech, career high 42, never won an ATP title. He was the less surprising name on the billing for this Masters 1000 final. Valentin Vacherot is the lowest ranked player, not just to ever win a Masters 1000, to ever make a final at this level. And by the way, they're cousins. Anybody on social media knows that, but I can't do this podcast without at least declaring it. They are cousins. Are you serious with this? Like straight out of a sports movie. Coric had the record at 152 in the world when he won Cincinnati. He was the lowest ranked player to ever win a 1000, but he was a former top 20 player who was coming off injury. That made some sense. Vacherot, there was really no way to see this coming. 3 out of his last 4 losses coming into this event were against players outside the top 300. By the way, he didn't win any first sets. He wasn't winning first sets. He came back from a set down in 6 out of his 9 matches. He doubled his career prize money. He is now your world number 40. Vacherot was 2 points away from losing in the second round of qualifying. I called one of his matches earlier this year in Aix-en-Provence. He played Bornegoyo. He lost 2 and 3. He did not make much of an impression on me, meaning I didn't come away from that match with a lot of opinions even on him. He did not stand out to me. Really amazing. So how do we make sense of this? In one way, I will obviously analyze the tennis, talk about Vacherot as a player. I also want to talk about a psychological dynamic that I think was powerful here, and we'll take the fitness angle, and we'll look at a lot of different things. But you also have to say that you don't always need to make sense out of everything, especially rarities. This was a unicorn. That's okay. You don't need to make sense out of Raducanu winning the US Open. We can call a unicorn a unicorn. But one thing that is true is top line ability, even when you get down around the 200s in the rankings, and Vacherot was 204, top line ability is often extreme, exceptional, outstanding. Not everybody. I mean, you'll hear a lot of people say like, so if Vacherot can do it, then there are a lot of players who are in that range that can do it. No, not everybody. But there are players in there whose top line ability is really, really, really awesome. And they're not ranked higher because of either consistency or a weakness. But one point I do want to make is that I do see a pattern. House money, when you are playing with the house's money, which is terminology for you've got nothing to lose. That tends to be when these kinds of things happen. I've seen it 3 times this year on the ATP Tour. I saw it happen with Jakub Menchik. Menchik tried to withdraw from Miami. His knee was injured. He filled out the paperwork to withdraw. The tournament supervisor was out on a lunch break. He started to feel better. He decided to give it a shot. He won the Miami Open. Career-changing result. Jensen Brooksby, early in his comeback, ranking was still very, very low, was offered a last-minute wild card into the qualifying of Houston. He did not plan on playing Houston. His coaches advised him not to go. They said, let's not play this. Jensen vetoed them. He went against their guidance. He played Houston. He saved a match point in the first round of qualifying. He saved match points in 2 additional matches en route to winning Houston, his first career ATP title, which put his comeback really on hyperspeed. Maybe it'll be his only ATP title. Who knows? What's the Vacherot story? He was going to play some challengers in Asia, so he was already going to travel to that part of the world. But he was 9 spots out of the qualifying in Shanghai. When you are 9 spots out, going and entering as an alternate is not a given. He did it. He decided to do it, roll the dice, see if he could get in. It was not a slam dunk. He got in. He decided it was worth a shot since he'd scheduled challengers in the weeks to follow that were geographically convenient. That's all this was. He came in with 0 expectations. None. Zip. He didn't even expect to play it. Often I do see that playing with the house's money can be one of the most powerful psychological dynamics in all of tennis. But other than that, I'm not going to sit here and do a logical analysis to try to explain why the unimaginable occurred. Other than to say, that's sports. That's tennis. So who is Valentin Vacherot as a player? Let's go through it. Let's start talking about the final here. 3 things stand out. He's got a terrific serve, backhand, and movement for size. Those are the big 3. You know, the serve is top tier. He averaged 133 miles per hour on the first serve in the final. Made 68%. Percentage was high really all week long, other than his first round match against Jera. Other than that, he was above 60, usually towards 70. One case against Bublik, well above 70. So it is Zverev-like serving. Great combo of high-end speed and high-end percentage. Doesn't have much of a off-speed, doesn't have the off-speed pitches, doesn't get a lot of width on like a slice serve. Rinderknech does that a lot better. I thought that might have been one of the differences in the match. In fact, in the first half of the match, I thought it was a difference where Rinderknech was actually getting more out of his serve. That just reversed. And the serving got to a level for Vacherot where it didn't really matter. He didn't need the off-speed pitches. 135 into a corner usually works pretty well. The backhand, he burned so many players coming in on his backhand. It's a very precise and stable shot. It's not bunty, so he can generate a bit off of it, but it's also kind of that unrushable backboard-like backhand, which also has a pretty bothersome flat, low trajectory, which is a feature that I really like for backhands on the tour. Shot of the tournament was his backhand pass against Rune. He was down a set. It was 5-4 in a second set tiebreak, and he caught Holger, coming in on his backhand with the short cross-court angled backhand pass? How about the same shot on break point to start the third set in this final? Another cross-court backhand pass, angled off nice and low. So great control on that particular shot, and I never feel like he's really going to miss backhands. And he changes direction down the line quite well. So awesome backhand. By the way, at 3-4 in the second, Vacherot hadn't yet produced a break point in the match, and he won 3 backhand-to-backhand exchanges in this game. He hit 2 down-the-line winners, and there was an unforced by Rinderknech where he netted a backhand trade. This was a big advantage for Vacherot. Movement for his size. That's the third strength. Scrambles well. For a guy serving that big, serving bombs, the mobility is great. Rinderknech was 12 for 24 net points won. And Rinderknech is a great volleyer. Now, he did have some mishaps at the net in this final. There's no doubt about that. But a lot of it was he struggled to create enough damage on his approach shots. And when Rinderknech is effective, it's because he's coming forward and finishing at net, period. I mean, he is not a great baseliner from neutral and defense. He has to get downhill and come forward. And it just didn't feel like he was having as much joy here. And a lot of it was the scrambling and the counterattacking on the passing shots from Vacherot, because he is, again, he's a great athlete for his size. Now, what about the fitness? Haven't mentioned this yet, but of course, anybody who followed Shanghai knows that it was a massive challenge for the players conditions-wise. Sweltering temperatures, high humidity. There's one point I want to make about Vacherot. He won 3 challengers last year, start of last year. And really, he was having a very good 2024. Efficient winner at the challenger level until he got injured and was out for several months. Kind of disrupted his momentum. But the 3 challengers that he won last year, Nonthaburi and Pune, Thailand and India. If you're winning in India and Thailand, you have already displayed an ability to handle hot and humid conditions. I found that little tidbit in Vacherot's background to be interesting. Now, if you're going to ask me, Gil, why does Vacherot lose matches? And why was he ranked so low? Other than some of the injury disruptions that I mentioned that certainly did bruise his ranking a little bit compared to where he should normally be at. Other than that, well, the forehand. In fact, I did speak with the player who beat Vacherot several weeks ago, and he told me basically same thing. Great serve, great backhand, but the forehand, when you slow it down, it can be shaky. And visually, I'll just say I don't like Vacherot's forehand. Extreme grip, stiff kinetic chain, reminds me a lot of Borna Čorić's forehand, technically. Not exactly a compliment. Just looks like Borna Čorić's forehand. Looks like he kind of has to muscle the ball. Well, sure enough, that's the direction I thought this match, this final against Rinderknech, was going. The forehand lost Vacherot the first set. He had 3 forehand looks, well, actually 4 forehand looks in this game that went bad on him. 3 unforced errors, and on break point, a +1 approach that understandably, after missing 3 forehands from comfortable positions, he played the approach a little bit safe, and he wasn't able to execute the transition forward successfully. So the forehand got Vacherot broken single-handedly. That was the only reason why he got broken in the first set. And then he didn't have much of anything going on return games. Rinderknech was rolling on his serve, largely because of, yes, the serve. And I mentioned Rinderknech, I think can be at times a little bit more precise, and he mixes up his spins and he achieves more width. He takes pace off. The wide on the deuce is really good. The slider up the tee on the ad is very good. So he's a little bit more savvy as a server than Vacherot, and that was effective early. But also, Rinderknech is elite when he gets downhill on his forehand. And that, to me, was the theory of the match. The theory of the match for Rinderknech was, here are two big servers, one who operates extremely well with attackable middle forehands, one who does not. And while Vacherot definitely has the advantage backhand and might be a little bit more athletic defensively than Rinderknech, is that really going to matter if the serves cancel each other out, but the first forehand is advantage Rinderknech? And if I may, I know Rinderknech lost the match, but I think the analysis of Rinderknech's forehand really tells the story of this match. Because from a particular position, Rinderknech's forehand is phenomenal. It's phenomenal. And then from a different position, it's actually poor. And it's all about which leg he hits the forehand off of. If he's able to hit his forehand off of his left leg, it's a great forehand. Sometimes he'll close his stance completely and he'll lean off that left leg and hit the forehand. Sometimes he'll be 3/4 stance, but he'll still get his weight on that left leg as he moves through the ball on the forehand. But when he is hitting open stance, and this usually happens when he's moving to his right, and he has to load his right leg on the forehand, that's when it's shaky. When Rinderknech gets downhill on his forehand, it is nasty. The grip and the technique remind me of Federer and Felix. It is a lot of wrist action, compact power, Eastern grip, very penetrating profile, good accuracy. When I say penetrating profile, I mean that it tends to go through the court. He never overshapes the ball. He creates enough spin to bring the ball down, but he never creates so much spin that it affects the speed of the ball through the court. And he's very comfortable hitting that very straight trajectory forehand. He's taking the ball early, hard, inside the court, getting his weight moving forward. That's when the forehand performs. But again, when he's pushed back behind the baseline, when he has to play open stance, that's where, man, it would be very helpful if he was more comfortable applying some shape to the ball and playing off of his right leg. I mean, the advantages to what he does with his close stance play and his 3/4 stance play is he's very good at stepping in and taking it early. And then he's very good at transitioning forward off of his forehand. And actually, there's one technique where he hits off of his right leg decently well, and that's when he, again, is moving through the ball with his weight moving forward. And then he closes the net very quickly as a result. So he takes the ball early. His footwork moves him through the court quickly in transition. Then he's a long 6'5", closes the net hard and well, covers the net well, volleys on balance, good volleyer. So the position where I love Rinderknech is when he's stepping into forehands from the middle of the court. I think he's awesome there. When he's moving to the right, it's not great. So what was the turnaround? Well, first of all, after Rinderknech took the first set, shaky forehand game by Vacherot, and then through midway through the second set, Vacherot still was not touching Rinderknech's serve. Like, there were not any returns, just none. Rinderknech had a couple of 30-all chances. Love all, 30-all. Rinderknech missed a low forehand into the net for an unforced error. It was that kind of that forehand off of his right leg. I don't think he really got up to the ball as quickly as he needed to on this one. 30-all, 3-all. Rinderknech actually found his transition. Forehand down the line approach, took it early, had a forehand volley, netted it. Huge missed chance here at 3-all second set. Would have had a break point, didn't get there. So I think it's important to just point out those couple of points. And then the next game, 3-4 in the second, suddenly returns in play. Returns in play for Vacherot. And once the return started going in play, it did unlock all of Valentin's advantages. Vacherot was able to use his athletic scrambling. There was more running side to side. When they are running side to side, I actually prefer Vacherot's forehand. It flips. It totally flips. Open stance backhand, same thing. I prefer Vacherot. This is where Vacherot becomes a better ball striker, when they are moving laterally. And that all comes down to the return setting the tone of the point. In the 3-4 game, as I think I mentioned earlier, 3 backhand-to-backhand exchanges, won by Vacherot. There was a second serve into Vacherot's forehand. He crushed it to win the point. And then there was a forehand unforced error from Rinderknech, moving to his right off of his right leg. That was the break, second set, 5-3 hold, and now we're a set apiece. In the third set, Vacherot goes unconscious. He went on a run, winning 19 out of 20 service points. And a lot of it was just unplayable, mega serving. Huge conviction on third balls. He did start to introduce the body serve. Came up really big for him in some spots. And after seeing no break points in the match up until 3-4 in the second, Vacherot ended up breaking 2 times in a row. And the third set was almost worse than it ended up being for Rinderknech. He hung in the third set for a while, but Vacherot ended up creating a break chance in 5 out of his next 6 return games, starting at 3-4 in the second set. It's worth looking at the love-all game in the second. Vacherot with backhand defense cross-court, which led to a Rinderknech backhand cross-court wide. So good D by Vacherot on the backhand, which is a feature. Love 15, sharp, deep forehand return by Vacherot, and a forehand down the line approach to force an error off the next ball. I didn't mention Vacherot as a volleyer, but he is good enough to apply some forward pressure and pretty smart about when he comes forward, when he comes in, and he's not shy about it. Love 30, Rinderknech made a pretty bad mistake here on a forehand volley, had open court, floated it terribly, but Vacherot's backhand answered the bell with a nice cross-court pass. You give Vacherot a chance to pass on his backhand, he's not going to miss that chance. A couple of big serves by Rinderknech to get to 30-40. Then at 30-40, Rinderknech with a perfect backhand down the line build. Perfect backhand down the line. Athleticism by Vacherot. He gets that ball back. Rinderknech hits a backhand cross-court approach. Vacherot, backhand cross-court pass, short angle for the winner. There it is again. Scrambling, athleticism. But remember, starts with returns in play. That wasn't happening for most of the match. As soon as it started happening, Vacherot turned the match around. And the rest of the third set was just staggering. It was staggering. Every return was just on point. The free points just dried up so drastically. Vacherot made 2 mistakes the whole set, really on back-to-back points, and he was up 40-love. He made 2 mistakes, and then he had a body serve, which set up a great body serve, which set up a forehand +1 winner. And that was that was it. He didn't make any mistakes. He was blasting forehands. He was automatic on his backhand. He was destroying his serves. He was flying around the court defensively. I can't imagine a better finish to this story than what the third set was for Vacherot. because it would have been understandable if this was like, two guys, they're cousins, they feel weird about the occasion, they feel a lot of pressure, they get tentative, they get scratchy, they have imposter syndrome. Like, all of these things could have been reasonable. That's not what it was. Valentin Vacherot took this thing by the horns and played lights out in the third set. Lights out. It was a quality watch. This final delivered. So not only is it going to be, a great story to read about, and, the moments after the match were unique and cinematic and tender, like all that is great. But man, like, these guys really also put on a really great final. So, man, one of a kind Masters 1000 and one of a kind run from Valentin Vacherot. He beat Novak Djokovic in the semis. Arthur Rinderknech beat Daniil Medvedev in the semis. Those are matches worth talking about. And for that, we're going to bring in Joel Drucker and Amy Lundy. Joel, who missed a bigger opportunity here, Medvedev or Djokovic?
Medvedev. And the reason I say that is because while Novak would have enjoyed winning this title that he's won many times before, that would have been a nice thing for him and a good thing, but Novak needs it less. I think Medvedev is at this stage of his career, this kind of quasi crossroads, and to see where things are going for him, because it's been a frustrating time for him the last few years. So I think Medvedev would have benefited more from grabbing this title.
I think I agree with that on all fronts. And Novak doesn't need it. No one's even 100% sure why he even decided to play Shanghai. It would have been a nice little feather in his cap. But even Gill, from a ranking standpoint, if he's trying to finish top 4 to help his Australian seeding, he may or may not need it just by virtue of the fact that he had a deep run here. Uh, but Medvedev does need those points.
Yeah, I'm with you guys. I feel it was an opportunity for Medvedev to flip the script, and his last title is still Rome 2023. It's just wild, right? Because
Wow.
at that point the stock was very high, and it was a very consistent run of Medvedev towards the top. And I think that does highlight the fact that it hasn't just been a short slump for Daniil. It's been kind of a steady degradation. As far as what actually went down here, well, if you zoom out, I'm going to go long. I apologize. I'm going to kind of go through and paint the picture of where Medvedev is at for me. There have been some positive flashes since the U.S. Open. Made a coaching change, of course, brought on Tomas Johansson. And since then, he's beaten Alexander Zverev. He's been in the semis of Beijing, and he was in the semis this week in Shanghai. I especially thought the Shanghai run was impressive because he beat guys in Lerner Tien and Alex de Minaur, who have both given him loads of trouble, and they're tough matchups for him. But after losing 6-4 in the third to Rinderknech, I can't help but feel like it's a clutchness and nerve management issue right now for Medvedev that has gotten so bad. This was a match at 4-5 in the third where he was serving the lights out all set long. At 4-5, suddenly pressure's on. Serve was totally ineffective. Double faulted on match point. He served for the match the week before against Tien in Beijing. He served for the match against Wu Yibing in Hangzhou the week before that. 2 double faults in the game where he was serving for the match. Nori at Roland Garros, he served for the match at 5-4 in the fifth, collapsed from there, barely won another point. He lost to Griekspoor in Dubai back in February, held 4 match points in that one. In deciding sets, he has lost 7 out of his last 8 matches. I think right now for Medvedev, there's a lot of signs saying, oh, wow, okay, he looks like a better version of Daniil. It looks like things are on the right track. But when the chips are down in the high pressure situation, He does not have it right now. The confidence and the conviction and the execution is not there.
I wish there was a little more data to support this. I'm kidding. I mean, it's incredible. It's a really interesting path. And look, Medvedev is always, when he burst on the scene, he was this kind of clearly self-made player technically. So his sense of ownership of technique hasn't always been in his corner. And yet to get that far in that many matches to that stage, yeah, you wonder then what's going on. And even if he said what was going on, we wouldn't know if that's what's going on. And right, that's a really interesting sequence of things you laid out, Gil, and that he hopes to fix. But yeah, he's in a really interesting stage right now. It's a really complicated stage. I think this is why we thought this Shanghai would have been a lot more to him, even though the attention's on Novak because Novak's the all-time great tennis player, and Medvedev is just is a guy who's won one major. So I've been very interested to see how things progress for him. I mean, he's probably haunted by some losses. I mean, he's lost two slam finals from two sets to live up.
I think he's got, I'm just going to say it, I think he's got an attitude problem. Um, he seems to be picking a lot of fights with the chair umpires. He's excuse making. He's talking a lot about how he's on a short leash. Of course, there was the match at the US Open with Bonsai where he was egging on the crowd. He made the statement to one of the chair umpires that I'm trying to be good ever since the US Open. So one senses that possibly he's been fined and or given a talking to. But all this is just excuse making. And like I've been reading a lot from the American football coach Nick Saban, who was, an iconic winning coach here in the United States. And he just doesn't like excuse making. And you are entitled to nothing is the philosophy. And Medvedev seems to always be talking about mistreatment, conditions, surface, what have you. And I think he needs to get back to the guy who I remember when he first came onto the scene, the more joyous side of his personality, the more humorous, just playing tennis more for the love of it. And I would like to see him get back to that and not the excuse making because I think he's sabotaging himself.
An attitude problem, I think, is not an unfair way to put it, but I also think he's way too smart for his own good a lot of the time. And sometimes in under pressure, see ball, hit ball, and just to be more instinctual can be such a valuable thing. And Medvedev is a thinker. And when things start going wrong and he can start to figure out reasons why things are going against him, I do think it seems like his head is crowded sometimes with worried about way too many external things. So yeah, there is a lot of umpire drama and there is a lot of conditions talk and there's a lot of changing his racket technology. Sometimes this year, even mid-match, he's done that. Is he thinking about too much stuff? And is that what is coming to bear on these big points?
I think I like the way we're looking at this. Like I like the thing Amy said about all the clutter in his head. Whenever someone says you're overthinking, what it really means, you're not thinking about the right things. You're thinking about too many of the wrong things, and that's the overthinking. So it's almost right. So he needs to. It strikes me that he needs to kind of boil down and quit the whining because the whining lets you be ready to be the victim, and that doesn't put your energy or your nervous system in the right place to serve the 4-2 game or the 5-3 game or any of these games. So it's leading up to this point. And of course, we all know that serving out a match or even a set can raise the stress a little bit more, and then you tip over the edge. So there's this sense that he's just like bristling. It's funny. While we were on, I went to X and I saw like some clip of him with an umpire. Yeah, all the stuff he gets into. It's like maybe he needs the behavioral intervention from Patrick Rafter or someone to just like get on with it, mate. And just play your tennis and quit your like. But someone would ask him, "What's the thinking with all this whining? What are you so upset about?" he's had a great career. He's not in the early stage of his career. He's not burning out. He's not finished, and he's a press conference darling because he is authentic and real about himself. But then there's other points like, okay, all right then. You know what I mean? All right then. I mean, learn from guys like Demonar because you can choose these attitudes. You can choose this attitude because there's a sense in matches that he's like self-victimizing. Like things are stacked against me and whoa and this and so it all starts to build up to this less than desired and even when he wins, that occurs. It's like, it's like almost like I said this to a junior once. I said your metric is how many times you don't get mad at yourself in this match. That's your performance objective.
Well, again, there were some good performances. I think he looked really stingy off the ground this week, which is something that he needs. And it's something when he loses that, he doesn't have much. But that consistency seems to be coming back. The physicality was actually really good after it failed him against Tien in Beijing. In Shanghai, I think to go, as long as he did with both Tien and then come back and beat Demonor in a very physical baseline heavy match was impressive. And against Rinderknech, I don't think he played badly, but he got game planned. And it's something that we started to see happen to Medvedev more and more in recent years. A player who is like, you're going to beat me from the baseline, but guess what? Your court position on return allows me to come in. So Rinderknech, heavy serve and volley, heavy first ball approach, and he lived at the net. And that's why he was able to hold serve so much because he got on his front foot. He was able to come forward a ton. And Medvedev, it didn't really matter that he was way more consistent from the back of the court, that he could outplay Rinderknech from the back of the court because Arthur made sure it wasn't that match. And then at 4-5, a failure of clutchness, a failure of nerve management. And that's all that match was. But other than that, I mean, there's a lot of good signs and a lot of good tennis right now from Medvedev in recent weeks. All right, let's go to Djokovic. Kind of the same story. Like we're kind of in the same place. He got to the semifinals and Amy, he lost his legs. He didn't have the fitness to keep going. So I think the discouraging part for Novak here is that this was a simulation of why he can theoretically win his 25th major. It was, well, there's only two guys. Alcaraz has an ankle problem. He's out. Sinner cramped against Griekspoor. He's out. Now we're the best player in the field now. We're the best. This is why we can win a 25th major. But it was the same problem that we've seen at these majors, just not against Sinner and Alcaraz. It was a physical malfunction once he got to the latter stages.
I do think that if now I don't want to be like a hypocrite and start making excuses for Novak, but if conditions had been a little bit more favorable, he might have had a better shot. Like at this point in his career and 38 years old, so many stars have to align, okay? Some big ones. Well, he got, two of the three stars that he needed to align. I still think even to make it as far as he did in this tournament to the semifinals, he is actually in really good condition. I mean, how many people just fell apart or cramped or whatever. But it was just, a bridge too far. By the way, the guys that were in the final, they deserved it. They were, as you said, he game planned. They were super fit. They were able to withstand the conditions. So kudos to them. But for Novak, I saw some amazing tennis in this run. Okay. I saw him do things that point against Bergs where he handled all those overheads. I just some incredible tennis from Novak. So my takeaway is yes, he can still win a slam. He can still win the Australian Open or Wimbledon. Um, it's just you got to have certain things break his way. And it didn't here.
Well, and also you got an environment where it seems like the Miami weather and the Indian Wells court speed and or near Indian Wells court speed. And I think that Novak, it's funny with that Bergs, I saw that point too. It made me think of Jimmy Connors and Paul Harhus in that famous point we've all seen
Mhm.
50 times. And like the wise old man throwing up lobs and the young opponent not knowing what what happened to that angle overhead thing? What about that? And he's just anyway. So I thought, wow, maybe the slow court is helping Novak, and then he loses him. Oh, I guess the slow court hurt him, or what was going on? I don't know. I guess that someone like that, you never think they can't win a slam. And Novak got to all these semis this year at the majors. So, but he's been at the stage these last couple of years where you need help, right? You need other things out of your control. Federer had the same stage where you need a draw break, you need good weather, you need easy early rounds. You don't just come in and roll through like the king.
The weather was brutal. And it's not, it's just a fact. It was it was difficult to withstand that. And I thought Djokovic, his ability to fight through suffering was what stood out to me, winning the deciding sets that he did against Hanfmann and Munar uh, in these tough conditions, which historically he has not liked. Yeah, there's definitely something to be said for that. He's still an incredible fighter at a tournament where, as you mentioned, Amy, part of you is like, why are you here? You know?
Mhm.
So I think for him to find that competitive spirit, to dig deep, that part is impressive. The excuse that I would go to would be this one. It's post US Open. Of course he's not in his best physical fitness. He's not gearing up for a major. Of course the fitness level is not at a 10 out of 10. The problem is we've seen it at the majors. We've seen the same thing happen at the majors. And that's where that falls apart. So, ordinarily my regular talking point would be it's Shanghai. It's post US Open, Novak Djokovic. It doesn't matter. Of course, he's not in great shape. It's hard for me to say that after the 2025 we've seen because the slams have not made him basically immune to these physical, fatiguing incidents. That's where I kind of land.
Yeah, I think that's a good place to land. And it's always that tightrope, well, if he doesn't play, he's not going to be as match fit. But if he plays too much, he doesn't want to do that at 38. He doesn't want to grind himself into the ground.
He's got
It's
to play.
just, yeah, I mean, that's a truism. I don't care if you're Superman or you are the GOAT. That is a truism that we know. There's fitness and then there's match fitness.
Just a couple of notes that I want to get in. Of course, Djokovic title count. 2023, it was seven. Last year, it was one. This year, it's one. So there's just a big difference and a kind of a sudden drop off that we've seen in that particular number. But I also want to go to something that, um, well, one more stat I have, and then I've got some perspective. Djokovic's record in semifinals and finals in the last 2 years. So this is tail end of tournaments. It's 7-11. So he's won a fair few semifinals, which means it's not a terrible record by any means, but it's obviously not a Djokovician record. That said, he has passed Alexander Zverev. He is now third in the race at 38 years old. There is nobody in the top 20 who's within 5 years of his age. He is the oldest player in the top 50, and yet he is third in the race. What he is doing at his age is still a complete defiance of regular aging and the decline that you expect at 38 years old for a tennis player.
So go the greats. I mean, that's why these guys, in some way, it's always interesting. When does a great most command our respect? When they're in their dominance of their A pluses, their superb greatness of winning, and then you see them in the decline, and they're still darn pretty good. I mean, I'm just gonna, Ken Rosewall is getting to the U.S. Open and Wimbledon finals when he's 39. Jimmy Connors has played very good tennis at numerous places past the age of 34, 35. Um, and with Agassi also, look, Agassi gets to the U.S. Open finals when he's 35. I think the thread in this is what I would call the footwork guys, the guys who have the all court game, the balanced posture, Rosewall, Agassi, Connors, Djokovic, Chris Evert, the way they maintain their discipline, their technique that carried them all the way to their glory years and continues to not drop. I mean, there are other kinds of styles that the drop is more was more glaring for various reasons, or strokes, techniques, and all that. But these guys, look how much they maintain that balance and the discipline of the playing style. I think that's a big thing with Novak too. I mean, there's such a educational aspect to how you see how he plays and how he goes about building points, and even his discipline, how he's learned to manage his energy. That's what Medvedev could learn. It's like, you want to have a long career, your technique isn't like Novak. You better have your attitudinal interpoint vibe done instead of creating all this tumult for yourself in between points and changeovers and all this stuff. So yeah, it's like a Mercedes the way Novak keeps humming.
All right, well, let's finish on some big Shanghai topics because speaking of the body, so many outcomes hinged on physical conditioning at this event. It was truly a war of attrition. And I hate it when people interpret that as taking anything away from the winners. I mean, that's part of tennis. What Vacherot and Rinderknech in particular were both able to do is survive conditions that were challenging for everybody, period. So there's no taking credit away, but it's the reality of the situation. 7 retirements in the event. That doesn't include Runa, who was cramping heavily in the third set and at least fought through the finish line. Djokovic compromised in that semifinal, did not have his legs under him. And part of it was the heat and the humidity in Shanghai. Part of it is the conditions. But it's kind of the second Masters 1000 in a row where we felt that way. Because Cincinnati was a pretty similar thing, right? We were saying, man, a lot of this is just about who's going to drop, who's going to survive this heat, and who's not. It's not an ideal thing for a tournament. I don't think it's good for the product.
Of course it's not. No one wants to see players retiring and players getting injured. I think though the way the game's organized, Cincinnati is a consequence of many things that go back to even the spring and the clay court season and the quick recovery from Wimbledon, the whole DC Canada Cincy thing and North American hard courts. This is different after the US Open, and there's smog and there's that, and it's just I don't know. I wonder if there's something. This gets to some of the even the layer of the calendar reform stuff, but also the time of year. The time of year. I mean, this is the time of year where you go out to try to get money and ranking points. I mean, there's very little. The legacy aspect of the fall is different. You know, it's like those tournaments haven't entirely created. They're great tournaments, but they haven't created like legacy significance the way, let's say, Monte Carlo or Rome or Indian Wells or Miami or Cincinnati have. They haven't yet. They may, but they haven't yet commanded that around the globe.
I think that with global warming and climate change, it's not going to be getting any cooler. I think this is a serious issue that has to be addressed. The ATP has come out and said, okay, we're going to think about this heat policy. Goodness, boy, you're really stringing us along on this. Like, come up with it, protect the players, protect your product. If nothing else, it should be a profit motive. But there's also the fans to think about. This is dangerous for them. You often see people passing out in the stands. You saw that quite a bit in Cincinnati. So I think this is a real problem, Gil, that is going to have to be addressed.
The heat policy is a must, and calendar reform is so difficult. And nobody, we've talked a lot about the length and the expanded Masters 1000, but also maybe a slight paradigm shift could be in order. And now we're thinking big in just adjusting the overall philosophy in which the tennis calendar chases the sun, chases the hottest months of the year at all of these events. And I think in some of these cities, that's not entirely necessary. Again, this is so far off from what feels realistic right now. I don't ever recall Shanghai being this bad, so maybe it was a one-off, but I don't ever recall Cincinnati being that bad. And I mean, Amy, I think you're statistically, you're right. It's only getting warmer. So it is something that, at the very least, a heat policy is step one. It should be looked at because, it's not really how you want tennis matches decided. Sometimes it's okay. Okay, it's a very physical sport. One player is going to cramp. One player is going to, become depleted, that's fine. But when that's like the main dictator of outcomes throughout an event, it's not what we want.
Maybe there's a super duper electrolyte that
Maybe.
that we made, a new training module, a new something, a new racket string. I'm not entirely joking. I know it's kind of flipped, but it's like a certain way in like the how you learn to manage it. To come back to Medvedev, um, in those conditions, you want to have an even cooler engine running. So your choices about how you process competition. And we all know that on a ultra hot day, the person who keeps his cool more is better off. So there's maybe some stuff. There's also some things in training methods, in recovery techniques, in meal management. I don't know. I don't know anything really about nutrition. So okay, good. Maybe this is the tournament where I eat steak more. I don't know, or eat steak less.
Those are really good points, Joel. I think a kitchen sink sort of situation, we got to throw everything at it. My thing is, I think we need more shade. I think these tournaments need, with retractable roof, they need to consider closing the roof and air conditioning the place. I mean, I'm not an engineer, but I know we have the technology. It just costs money, but it might be worth it. The fans need more shade. There are any number of ways to shade and provide cooling at these places, and we just need some engineers working on this, and it is well worth the study and well worth the money.
Well, the closing the roof, I think, is a real of that kind of thing is good. And I think the tournaments and and the leadership of the tours needs to do that. I've heard various stories across the years, many folklore where the two players should they play under the roof or not, and they ask the players, and the one who's more fit wants it. It's like enough of that.
Yeah,
We're not taking a vote here. We're not building
yeah,
consensus. It's like, we're going to do this here. Go on, Gil.
It's got to be a policy, right?
Right.
Because as soon as it's not a policy, now you open up allegations and
Right.
potentially actual favoritism. You
All of
cannot
that.
leave it. You can't leave it in the hands of a tournament director or tournament organizers in general to make that call. It needs to be, look, if the temperature is above this, we close the roof. That needs to be in the print. And as long as it's something reasonable like that, I could be in favor of that. There's also the slowing down of the conditions. We'll end on that. Uh, we kind of had a conversation about this already because Roger Federer kind of made the Alexander Zverev remark before Zverev made it. And for whatever reason, we were, I think, one of the only outlets to actually give it a good hard look when Federer said it. And a lot of other people didn't say anything then, but then when Zverev said it, they had a field day in knocking it down. And part of it is it's a very different messenger. And some of the points that were made about Zverev as the messenger are absolutely valid points. I don't know if you guys want to talk about what Zverev said specifically or not. What I want to say, this is kind of my take. If a tournament is going to slow down the conditions, as Shanghai absolutely did this year, there needs to be some transparency. I don't know why we get a court change like this and we don't get a statement from the tournament director or the ATP. Like the fact that this is done and it's just like, yep, it's way slower now. Nobody knows why.
surprise, surprise.
What
One of
is
the
that?
fastest courts on the ATP is now very slow. What will they say?
It is absolutely ridiculous that this just happens without any warning. Um, and by the way, for those who didn't see it, Alexander Zverev said that tournament directors are intentionally slowing down the courts to favor Carlos Alcaraz and Jannik Sinner. So, Amy, you're with me. I mean, if you're going to change the
Bad week to
courts,
bad week to make that statement, Alexander Zverev, because it just did not pan out for him. And of course, the meme was that they made the court so that Cousins could be in the finals. But I I I I was right. We were right, that I didn't think that there was much to this, and I still don't. Although, Gil, what a great idea for transparency, for the tournament director to come out and say we've added sand to the surfacing this year, or we've made it slicker or whatever. And that would help the players. It would help everybody prepare. We'd have more clear talking points. Now everybody's just in the dark.
Yeah, like the stuff around balls, and I wonder if the stuff with balls and court speed is trying to like bubble up because we're gathering this information. It's no longer just folklore. We're knowing things about the courts. We're knowing quantitative things about speeds and stuff. So we might as well know. That, yeah, it's like the way they know with golf courses, right? They know with golf courses. Our course we got a 485 on three and a 370 on four and this and that. So let's just be clear about it. And we're doing it for these reasons. We did our study of our market and this and that, and this is why we did, instead of having it be this kind of mystery. Yet another thing of tennis. It's just like the way I think about some of the way the coaching thing is going. It's kind of is it still an experiment? Is it still going to happen? What can you talk? Can you not talk? And so with the same thing with the court speed, let's be clear. Yeah, our tournament is a 0.65 on the speed scale, and that's how it's going to be. And okay, adapt for it. And oh, good, let me resurface my court at home to be a 0.65, etc.
Yeah, yeah. Indian Wells made a change, and they actually did release a statement so that
Good.
everybody knew what was happening. But that was also part of a switch in the company that was legitimately making the courts. But Shanghai, it just seemed to be this very big surprise to everybody. And you can just take away all of the speculation and confusion by just saying what's going on. Just tell everybody what's happening. And
Question:
yeah,
Would you rather
bare
learn
minimum.
would you rather show up and be surprised by it being too fast or too slow?
It depends on who you are as a player,
Yeah, I
you
go.
know?
Okay, as a spectator.
Well, I mean, if I'm a fan of, I'm just putting this out there. If I'm a fan of Novak and I know Novak plays really well on fast surfaces, maybe I say, oh, maybe he's got a shot to win, so I'll buy tickets for this. I don't know. I'm just gaming it out.
Yeah, interesting. Court speeds. It's good.
Yeah, I like variety. I like variation. I don't think the slowness combined with the super brutal conditions was a great combination for this Shanghai event. It just became too physical for the players. But
Yeah, some of those points when you can tell on TV, when you can see on TV like the ball slowing significantly on a rally from television from halfway around the planet. It's like Indian Wells has always been slow, but then you have thin air. So it's kind of not always as vivid. But this stuff in Shanghai, I mean, we were all watching at different times. It's like, wow, that's pretty slow. That's pretty slow.
all right, guys, thank you. This has been fun.
Good day.
Thanks, Gil.
That's our show. If you liked this format, make sure to let me know in the comments because obviously there's a couple ways I can do it. I can do the breakdown and the three separately, or I can combine it. But I do want to do this more often where I do my monologue and then I have a guest, whether it be Joel or Amy or somebody else, join me as kind of part two of the show. So let me know what you think of that. Regardless, some really exciting content, I hope, coming down the pipeline as I'll see you at least one more time this week as far as a podcast is concerned. And make sure you're also following me on social media where I've been doing a lot of bonus content. TikTok and Instagram, Gill Gross _ is the handle. Hope you enjoyed. Don't forget to subscribe. I'll see you next time.